Hi everyone, welcome to the session this morning. My name is Ashley and I'm with the St. John's Board of Trade. I think everybody's just getting connected to the audio. You are on mute, I did want to let you know that. Your camera is defaulted off, but if you want to turn it on, you can so we can see you. Right now you are looking at John's screen, and John Atkins is one of our presenters this morning with Jack, as well as David Yetman with David Yetman.Consulting. They are going to talk this morning about making the shift, being business resilient in uncertain times. David, I think you're going to start the session, so I am going to throw it over to you. And just a quick note, if you did have a question at any point, this session is meant to be interactive, so you're welcome to put it in the chat if you just had a general question and you didn't want to verbalize it. Or if you did have something that you wanted to ask one of the presenters, there is a raise hand feature under the participants tab, or you can just hit one of the little yes, no buttons to signal that you wanted to speak, and I will let the presenters know and take you off mute so you can chat with them. That is it for me. The session is being recorded so we can share it back with everyone later. And I think we're ready to go. So David, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. I think just to let you know, I think David is in the waiting room there as well.
Yes, I'm trying to get him in. He keeps bouncing out every time I try to admit him, so he might be some tech issues there.
So thank you for that, Ashley. Welcome everybody. John and I are going to co-present, so I'm going to take the first part. We want it to be more interactive, so we have a presentation that's in front of you, and so we've structured it that we'd have about 20 minutes or so that we'll sort of talk at you, and then we'll have lots of room for questions and discussion and engagement and so on. So I'll just introduce myself first. I'll let John introduce himself as well, and then we'll get started. So I've been in business management consulting for 10 years now, over 10 years, which amazes me because I never thought I would be here 10 years later. My area expertise is in business resiliency. And I was telling Ashley a little bit before we started, everybody's using the term resilient these days, but in the business terms, we'll see what that means shortly. But it really is helping businesses withstand unpredictable times. I started on an academic path, but switched over to business. And I just started a program at Harvard, actually Harvard Business School online, that started last week, and that's in the topic of business sustainability as well. So John, I know you briefly introduce yourself as well, and then we'll get started.
Hi guys, I'm John Atkins, CEO of Jack. We are a digital marketing agency. We've been around for about 12 years. I have about 25 years experience in both traditional marketing as well as digital marketing. Like David said, we are kind of focused on generating business for our clients, especially during this very uncertain times with COVID-19. We've seen businesses that have come on board do extremely well, positioning their business through digital. Just a little bit about, I guess, the company as well. We have been very, I guess, appreciative of the fact that we've been able to win 45 international awards for the work we've done with our clients. Myself, I've been awarded top 50 CEO in Atlantic Canada for the last 5 years and been inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to working with various businesses. Over the last 12 years, we've worked with well over 450 businesses in various industries. And I'm looking forward to this presentation today and answering any of your questions that you may have. I look forward to your talk today. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. And John and I work quite a lot together, and the case studies that we've got today is a sort of reflection of that. We combine both business strategy and the tactical part in order to increase business. So John, we'll go to the next slide there. Can we move on to the next slide? Can you see that there? Yeah. So what do I mean by make the shift? You know, we all know that COVID-19 has had a major impact on business. It's been positive and negative. For some companies, it's increased their business farther than they could ever have imagined, depending on the product that they have. But you know, for the most part, it's really impacted the greatest percentage of business, I would say, especially if you look at retail, if you look at restaurants, you know, if you look at the service industry, travel industry, et cetera, has really had a major impact. And so when we use the term make the shift, it's about preparing a business to be ready for the types of major things that could upset business. But business resiliency, again, is a really ambiguous term, and it's one that can be really overused. I mean, lots of these terms, like even business strategy, is overused. They're used in the wrong context. They're often used to really not refer to the right thing when you think about business. So I guess the common thing with all businesses is that businesses faced with daily challenges, right? You're faced with operating challenges on a daily basis. You're faced with cash flow issues on a daily basis. And then you're faced with these sort of unpredictable events that happen that really throw you for a loop. And so that's common in business. And can you be positive about that? Well, sometimes. What I try to do when I coach businesses is to say, well, you're always going to be faced with these sort of impossible situations that come up. And really what we have to think is, how are they disguised as an opportunity? That's what John and his team are good at, and that's what we're good at working together. How do we take the challenges that currently exist and make a creative space so that we're able to move over that and create an opportunity that we didn't know existed before? We can go to the next slide.
Can you see that, David?
No.
God, freaking Zoom.
Okay, that's good. Might have to press play again. Sorry about that.
Yeah, seems like when I go full screen, it kind of knocks itself out. So apologize, guys, for that. So I'm not sure why it's doing that.
All right. So again, today we're going to talk about, in general, what does business resiliency mean? I'm going to frame that up a little bit for you. Talk about specifically what it means, and then I'm going to segue that into John to talk about online resiliency in particular, and being in an online space, having your brand online, having e-commerce capabilities, and how that really makes a difference in today's world, as a lot of you already know. We don't have to tell you that, but in particular in terms of situations like COVID-19, where people are trying to scramble then to get over the hurdle. It really makes a difference to be prepared beforehand. So business resiliency in my mind means a company's ability or an organization's ability to adapt quickly. Okay, so you have that mindset. You have the mindset that risk is ever present. You know you need to mitigate that risk in the short term, but you are ready for these disruptions that are going to take place. And disruptions could be short term, or it could be medium term, or it could be long term, right? And so when I look at short term, it could be cash flow. Cash flow is always a disruption. You know, it could be an unpredictable part of the cash flow. You might be used to a regular part of your cash flow where, you know, summer could be strong, for example, if you're a restaurant. Fall could be sort of good. Winter could be weak. And you're used to that cycle. But then all of a sudden something happens and it causes a wedge in your cash flow. And what you normally would have expected to be strong has now made it a bit troublesome. Okay, that's like a short-term disruption. COVID-19 is probably a long-term disruption. It's something that we're going to have to get used to. We had to revamp our operations in the short term, but it's certainly one that we're going to have to get used to in the long term in terms of how we conduct business. So you maintain your continuous business operations, you safeguard your people, you safeguard your assets that you have in place, whether that's capital assets like buildings, or it could also be your people assets, or it could also be your intellectual property. So you're able to safeguard all those. And in the end, the big thing is, which John is going to talk about quite a lot, is how do you guard your brand equity? Okay, so how do you safeguard all of those processes to make sure when a disruption takes place that your brand continues to be strong, that your market penetration is still strong, and then you're still able to continue business with some level of continuity. So John, we can go to the next slide there.
I'll just speak on the online resiliency for a little bit there.
Sure, go ahead. Sorry about that.
So we titled this discussion Make the Shift. And the reason why we did that was because there has been a shift in the way people are consuming information, especially during COVID-19. Good or bad, it has definitely opened a lot of businesses, a lot of eyes in terms of the businesses that we work with, in that they've traditionally used like traditional methods of marketing, now seeing that the shift of those eyes are gone and gone online. And we find that some of these businesses haven't made that move to really elevate their profile and their brand in the online world. And COVID has kind of really forced those businesses to do that. And ones that have already made that shift before something like COVID has experienced, have seen success during these main businesses that are coming to me now that have already had that shift prior to COVID-19 and are seeing amazing results. So again, that's extremely important for this conversation today, is how to move your business that may be traditional and using traditional types of marketing, and how to move that to the digital world. And some of the stuff is not really complicated. A lot of it is just understanding, where to position your company within those different, I guess, channels or assets that are online. So again, we're gonna walk through some of this stuff and understand, how to set yourself up for success, for those types of where the audience is too. And that's what I talk to all of my clients that I work with, is we go where the audience is too. It doesn't make a difference if it's traditional or digital, but now in COVID-19 times, we know that, a lot of eyes right now are in the digital world. I'm going to move to the next slide, David. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this or not, because Zoom is having problems. What slide? Do you see the graph? No?
We're still on business resiliency. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know why it's doing this, but anyway.
That's okay. We'll get over that technical hurdle. Okay, so again, it's about being ready. It's always having that mindset. It's always putting yourself in a place where adversity is going to come. That might sound obvious, but a lot of businesses don't think that way. A lot of businesses get used to, number one, you get bogged down in operations because it's so hard to deliver on a daily basis to bring in your revenue. And you don't have the mindset to think that how am I going to be ready when something unpredictable comes? And so if you look at the left-hand side on the list there, if I break down what business resiliency means and how I work with companies and how John works with companies in an online space to get them ready to be resilient, these are sorts of the categories that we focus on. I'm going to talk about the graph here in a second. So, first and foremost is strengthening revenue. Any company would know that, right? That sounds like a no-brainer. If I say to you, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to make more money. That's why you're in business. But there's ways within strengthening revenue streams that can really make a big difference. And I'm going to leave that for John, because we're going to talk specifically about how online and the online space can help increase revenue. The second one is controlling costs. So again, sounds sort of obvious, right? But when things go well, and I've seen this in companies before, lots of companies don't look at costs. They don't look at scrutinizing costs. They don't look at controlling costs. And one that disturbs me quite often is marketing. And I remember a conversation I had with a company about 5 years ago. And I think the company is, they're not folded, but they certainly downsized probably by 200%. And I looked at the cost lines, and they had $90,000 that they spent 1 year in marketing. And I asked the question, well, can you tell me what return you got out of that? And they said, I really don't know. I can't tell you. And so we had to then break down where they were spending their advertising. And so John is going to talk about that lots, because John and I work diligently on controlling costs, making sure return on investment is there, making sure that the money is spent, especially when we think about marketing and marketing channels, that there is a return on investment. We're able to measure it, and we're able to show how that turned into revenue. The next one, increasing market share, is one that I won't get into a lot, but just to say that that's another way that if you have competitors and you're in an industry with competitors, if you can solidify market share in the short term, it makes you resilient in the longer term. Because when something happens, you got more customers and you got more entry in the market. And that might sound easy. You might say, Dave, like, sure, that sounds great in a textbook. It's not that easy to do. But again, we have case studies to back that up, and John can kind of elaborate on that as well. John will talk about this one too, brand loyalty, and especially how you build brand loyalty online, because brand loyalty is important. When something adverse happens like COVID-19, it does make a difference where customers are going to spend their money. You know, I realize the challenge is that not everybody can go to a restaurant, again, as an example, right? But when things open, you want them to come to your doors first. We spend a lot of time diversifying product lines. So we look at, okay, here's what you're doing right now, but what can we add on to that, knowing that we're not going to kill current operations, and dream a little bit about what some new product lines could be and how we could enter some new markets, or even your current customers maybe buy an additional product line from you that sort of separates you from the competitor, okay? It doesn't mean that we're completely going to change what we're doing at the moment, but it could add a revenue stream. It could increase some of your market share, and you should always be playing in that area. There should always be time put aside for creativity and creative processes within your company, but there also should be sort of research and development that's happening. And I don't mean in the scientific technical sense. I should mean you should always be thinking about new ways of doing things. Online e-commerce, I'm going to leave to John, but I just want to have that in the list because that's certainly one way that you can deal with adversity. So if I wrap business resilience up in all of that, the graph that you see there really sums it up for me. And this is a graph of performance over time for companies. And you see this quite often. It applies to really large companies like Fortis, as much as it does the small companies that I know some of you are here today, small to medium-sized enterprises. It is the same performance curve. So you start right at time zero, you get out there, you start selling stuff, and then lots of businesses take off quickly. So you see that quick growth because you're new in the market. There's something new out there. The customer gets excited about it. Social media exasperates that now, right? Because the word gets out quick. But then you get stuck in that middle part of that S-curve. So this graph is called the S-curve. In the middle part of that S-curve is where you get comfortable. That's the biggest danger in a company. It's great that you're making money. It's great that you get good performance. It's great that you're able to cover your costs and that your operations are going well, but people get complacent in that middle zone. Okay, and that means that you're not really thinking about unpredictable times. Would anybody think that COVID-19 would come? No, absolutely not. You know, but again, these unpredictable risks are always going to be there for a business. And so the real challenge is, and what John and I talk about often, is how do you make the shift? Okay, again, going back to the title of the presentation, making the shift. Making the shift is getting from that comfortable zone to where you plateau on the top and breaking it into a new S-curve. Okay, and so is that really easy? No, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes money, it takes commitment, it takes creativity, it takes space, it takes people like John Atkins and his company to get you in an online space that's able to break you out of that. The whole point is that you move beyond where you've been comfortable to a new S, where you're able to plateau a little bit more. You're able to move it up. You're able to elevate what you're doing so that you can bring your company to a new height. You can make more money. You can enter new markets. You can gain more market share. So yeah, if I say that to companies, the first response that I always get is, well, I can't. I'm too busy. You know, I got too much to deal with right now. My operating is killing me. I don't have the people. I can't handle my people because I spend all my time coaching them, you know, dealing with issues and problems and holidays and and paychecks, and you know, I can't get it done. I don't have the energy. You know, it's not going to happen because my sector is not going to grow. You know, there's too many competitors. My market is too small. You know, and we're going to show you examples of how that's not the case. There are always creative ways to bring you from that lower S to that upper S. And again, John is going to show you that in terms of the online space, but I'm also going to give you a case study now that'll kind of give you an example of that. So I just stop it there for a second. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. Ashley, I'll just pause for a few minutes. Anybody got any questions on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, if you have any questions, there's nothing in the chat, but you're welcome to put them in there, or you can raise your hand. I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll continue on. And again, we got a fair bit of time built in for discussion at the end. So this is a case study from a project that John and I have spent an awful lot of time on together, currently continuing to work on. Fabulous place if anybody's ever been there. It's about an hour and a half from St. John's, and it's over 100 acres. Very different experience if you've been there. I've traveled a lot in the world, but the doctor's house has a special feel. You know, if you stay there overnight, with the overall collective experience, it feels special. And so the doctor's house a couple of years ago, the owner came to me for a meeting, and they were plateaued. Okay, they were doing well, but they had plateaued in that part of the S curve that I showed you about. And the question that I remember talking about over coffee was how do I break the plateau? How do we move up? How do we escalate? You know, how do we increase? How do I increase stays? How do I increase revenue? You know, and so on. So 2 years later, we've done a lot of work in multiple areas with the doctor's house, including online. But this is some examples on the left-hand side of what we did. I would say first we strengthened the brand voice. You know, there was a lot of good brand voice for the doctor's house in the marketplace, but John and his team redesigned the logo, as you see up top there. We really wanted the essence of what the brand was. So the tagline, redefining luxury, was key to sort of the new future. It's sort of luxury, but it's sort of different luxury. So it's not like anywhere else that you would stay, and really capturing that in the brand essence made a big difference. We put systems in place to position the brand online. John built a brand new award-winning website, and I think it won an international award. And built an e-commerce platform, integrated the booking system into the platform, built out social media campaigns with the teams and the people that he had out there as well, who were good at marketing. And to make a long story short, with all of that positioning and so on, with automated systems that John put in place to respond to customers, with engagement with customers online, and he's going to talk about those processes in his presentation. It made a lot of difference. So
just want to chime in there, David, a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to making the shift, these guys made the shift 2 years ago. So that, you know, in terms of resiliency, they were ahead of the curve, so to speak. So when COVID-19 did hit, they were in a very good position because they managed to take something that was, they were kind of tinkering online to begin with. But when we came on board 2 years ago, we really, you know, put the hammer down in terms of understanding where the audiences are too, and then really kind of targeting those messages, the creative, the price points and everything to those audiences. As a result of those 2 years of working really hard and really trying to position that company well, when COVID hit, it was actually the amount of people coming to the doctor's house was absolutely amazing. Yes, you could say, okay, well, that's because of COVID-19. Yeah, but if we didn't do the brand equity within the company itself prior to this, do you think that they would actually have, you know, people would have top of mind of a place they want to go for a staycation? No, because the fact that we were pushing this information and targeting people and behavioral targeting, when people would go from one website to the next website and all they were seeing was the doctor's house information, when a situation like COVID has hit, all of a sudden they're top of mind. Now, did Doctor's House have the money to do this? When David was talking about the S-curve, no, they didn't. They plateaued. It was a big challenge for them to come on board and say, John, I really don't have that extra money to put into the marketing. And I hear this all the time from a lot of businesses. And I understand, I'm a small business myself. I mean, it is extra money. And you got to trust somebody, and trusting your money, regardless if it's $100 or $5,000, doesn't make a difference. You're putting that a trust that company is going to help you out. And there's been many cases in many different agencies, that promise everything, and then at the end of the day, they deliver great creative but no results. So it's important, I guess. The Doctor's House really believed in us because we were, our focus was on metrics and results. Everything that we do has to be based on the fact that, can it be measured? I think that's a takeaway that you guys need to understand as well. Regardless of who you work with, at the end of the day, even if you're yourself, you need to know, what result has happened. Is it the number of engagements went up on Facebook? Is there a number of likes, number of shares? Is the traffic on the website come up? Even stuff has there been any increase in online bookings? You wouldn't believe how many people don't look at these things in their business, which is very frustrating because at the end of the day, this is where the opportunities lie. And if you don't understand, has my business increased in revenue? Have I increased in bookings? How many people are talking to me on a monthly basis? Then, you really need to kind of get that under control.
So John, I'm going to pass it over to you now. I'm going to end on one point here because I want you to get to your piece and then have some time for discussion. But if I guess my lasting point on this would be that because the Doctor's House took a leap of faith in some ways to try to shift that S-curve from lower to higher and diversify their product line as well, because there's the last example that I want to tell you that in a traditional business where we're relying on room bookings, we created something called masterclasses before COVID-19 hit actually, in anticipation of trying to reach a global market, to get more exposure for the Doctor's House. And masterclasses were the Doctor's House connecting with master instructors in fields to do online instruction that would end in a retreat at the Doctor's House. And so we just launched the first one with John and him probably about a week and a half ago. And we're already booked for the first one. 14 people have booked. It's going to end in a retreat in 2021. But we've had people sign up from Spain, from the UK, from Australia, and from North Carolina in the US. And so you would think, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense as a traditional business. But it's the thinking that we need to break new models. We need to get in new ways of thinking so that we can reach new customers, get the brand out there and so on. And that's paid the dividends. So the last point I want to make before I hand over to John is that people say this to me all the time as well in business. I ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you doing business the way that you're doing it? And the answer I get is because we've always done it that way. And that's the first thing you have to break in terms of your model. The way you've always done it may have worked, but it won't continue to work in the future because there'll always be something that'll disrupt. So John, I'm going to pass it over to you now and you can get into your online resiliency piece.
So just like David said, I mean, you have to find, product lines if you can with your business, like we did with the Doctor's House. I think that's extremely important, especially during these times when, things have definitely been turned upside down. Making the shift, even in my business, I plateaued. I have to find different ways to get out of that, that level, that S curve that David was talking about. And it's challenging, right? Like it's like you don't want to, like, owning a business is very stressful. Like it seems like every stage, okay, I hire a new employee, that's stressful. Oh, I go to a new location, that's stressful. Now all of a sudden, I'm finally made it, 5 years in, I'm finally made it, I'm starting to see some revenue. All of a sudden now you got other issues like HR, then you got COVID-19 that hits, that completely puts everything upside down. But again, over the years of running my business, I've learned to kind of take these things in stride that, you know, you got to plan for these things regardless if it's COVID-19, because there's going to be something else down the road that's not COVID-19 that's going to throw things off as well. So it's important that you really, think about that and not just kind of, you know, and it's hard, right? Because if, like me, I'm running my company and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. You got so many hats. You're wearing so many bloody hats, and all of a sudden it's like, now I got to deal with this COVID-19. Now I got to change up the way I do things. So what I want to kind of show you today was really how do I move, especially businesses that haven't really kind of moved to the digital world as of yet. How do you move from a traditional space to a more to the digital world? So what you see here is kind of like a target. In terms of a plan that we use with our clients on an ongoing basis in terms of how to push your business from a traditional type marketing to more of the online world. And I'm not saying that we're taking traditional and completely squatting it and killing it altogether. I'm just saying that, you know, you have to look at where the audience is to. Okay, so right now with COVID-19, with the fact that they're isolated in their homes, everyone is on the computer. There's no doubt about that. Like, you know, there's stats upon stats showing the fact that, you know, the amount of engagement and amount of bandwidth that's being consumed is just through the roof. So if you're not in that space, then you're not relevant. And that's extremely important to understand that, because it's such a missed opportunity to position your brand, to position your products to those people. And the fact that you're not doing this or doing very little of it, it can cause dramatic implications for your business moving forward. We have a new normal, and that's it. This is a new norm, right? This COVID has pushed, you know, those people into that new norm. We've been promoting this for quite some time. And, you know, fortunately, some businesses who have kind of really taken that leap are now reaping those benefits. So the impact of COVID hasn't been that bit of an issue, you know, hasn't been a big problem with them, because of the fact that they've built the brand, they built, the actual plan online before this hit. Okay, and that's not in every industry. I understand that as well. I mean, I'm not that stupid to know that if certain industries have been hit extremely hard. So what I want to walk through here with you very quickly is the fact that, you know, in order to kind of get yourself ready to move yourself from a more traditional marketing space to a digital space, is to really kind of understand the fact that you need a strategy. Okay. If you don't have and this doesn't have to be, you know, a drawn out process, you know, months of developing a strategy. It just you need to have a direction in terms of how you're going to move, you know, your sales and marketing that was mostly traditional to a digital space. So understanding if you have those business strategies or brand strategies that you need to work on. Like the biggest thing, you know, I see a lot of companies is when it comes to brand reputation, specifically online, they don't understand what that means. So in its simplest form, you should really be focusing on like a few key aspects. Obviously, you know, communicating with your people on social media, that's a no-brainer. That's, you know, you need to be doing that on a constant basis. But there's things that I've seen many, many times that small businesses don't do, and it's so easy to actually, to put in play. For example, Google reviews, you know, having your Google My Business actually updated correctly. How frustrating is it when a customer comes and searches for your company, there's no information about your business on the right side where Google is too good. Everybody uses Google, everybody finds, you know, tries to find the telephone number, trying to find the hours of operation. That information is either not there or it's not updated. Extremely frustrating. All of a sudden, that's their first touch point. Most times that is really the first touch point with a business is through Google My Business. The second point is that no one actually gives any thought to testimonials in Google. And it's huge, absolutely huge, especially if you're selling a product or a service. So let's say if I was out there searching for, you know, a product, and I come across, on Google, I see all these reviews, and I see a 3-star, I see a 2-star, and I see a 5-star. You know, you're going to position yourself. You're going to click on the 5-star. You're not going to click on a 3 or a 2-star, and that's extremely important. So the thing is, how do you get those, you know, 4 stars, 5 stars? Well, it's easy for the most part. I mean, you just need to build that into your actual marketing strategy. So when you are communicating with people, during specific times, that you have the ability to them to share those experiences on Google or even Facebook. So Facebook and Google, like those two review things are extremely, extremely important. It's I can't stress that enough. So most people say, well, okay, John, I'm running TV, I'm running print ads, I'm doing like, events and trade shows. Really haven't done a lot online. Excuse me. So the problem with that is those traditional avenues, they are still great, especially in the local environment. I mean, TV and radio is still pretty powerful. But the thing is, you need to start shifting, because the cost of those are extremely expensive. So when a client comes to me and says, John, you know what, I just burned $13,000 on TV, right? It's like, that's great brand exposure. But if I had that $13,000 that I could actually control myself, you wouldn't believe the amount of exposure I could give you for $13,000. Actually, you know what? For half that price, I would give you a lot more exposure that is targeted online. You have to think, people that are in COVID are sitting in front of their computers. I can target directly their interests, their sex, their age, their income levels, their interests, and I can do that at half the cost, probably even less than that, but give a lot larger return when it comes to marketing on the online side. So when you say control costs, this is one of the things that we work with clients on a regular basis to see exactly, like David said, some people don't even know what they're actually spending or what the return is. I come in, and I've done this with one of the actual case studies here was Avalon Ford. I came in, they were spending a significant amount of money per month, and I cut that in half, and they got a better return as a result. Why? Because I was able to target correctly. I understood, who the people were, what their interests are. And all of a sudden, I've been able to cut their revenue spend in half and increase the amount of sales. That's very powerful. When it comes to stuff like the Ring 3 here I'm talking about, absolutely important to make sure you have, your website, your social media. We all know this. We should know this, right? The biggest play here is allocating money to advertising in the digital world. That is really, and this is a challenge that I have with a lot of small businesses, is getting them to spend money online. The reasons there's challenges because, one, they don't understand it. Two, there's more cost involved, and three, there's trust. So I have clients all the time that, especially new clients that come on, not so much old, existing clients, because they see the actual return. Is, well, John, I got to spend $500 a month. How do I know I'm actually going to get? I tried this before myself, and it did nothing. Yeah, because you weren't doing it right for one thing. You weren't working with a company that understood how to take that money and allocate it correctly. Your money is my money. That's the way I look at things. So you need to make sure that, you really understand when you go into this digital world, and it can be complicated. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's Facebook, it can be through some of the stuff that they do. That's not the right way of actually managing, your spend in Facebook. And Google itself is just a nightmare unless you really understand their dashboards, which can be absolutely complicated as well. But the thing is, there's a lot of good resources out there for that. There's companies like myself that can work with you. But that's extremely important that you have a digital spend regardless of what it is. Because, I mean, if you don't have any marketing spend at all, you're dead. Regardless if it's TV, if it's radio, billboards, regardless, you have to have a marketing spend. And that's the biggest thing that companies cut when times of like COVID-19 happens, when you actually should be leaning into it more so than actually leaning back. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about here is, so we've looked at the fact that you need kind of some type of strategy to begin with, to kind of have to plan to kind of guide you in how to get online. You have to look at your traditional advertising, see if that actually the costs make sense. Then look at the fact that how much it costs for traditional versus digital, how much more bang for my buck can I get if I go digital? Does it make sense? Am I still getting traction on let's say like TV or radio or, print ads, whatever it is? Third thing is in looking at, is my site optimized for the search engines? Am I scoring relatively high within the search engines? Because we know that search engine traffic is extremely powerful, and that's typically where a lot of people do their first touch point. And we talked about like Google My Business. Do you have, is your Google My Business optimized? Do you have a Google My Business, for one thing? Are you verified with Google so that people can find your business? Then your website, a whole other ball of wax. You know, is your website optimized correctly? Is it easy to navigate through? You know, does it have the right messaging? Is it updated? Do you have a news section that's outdated, that is like, you know, 2 years old, the last news on it? If you do, take it down. Take it down, because it's pointless. Because in terms of brand reputation, it looks like you're stale. Looks like, are they guys still in business, or is this just a website that's been up for like a couple of years and done nothing with it? And especially now during COVID-19 phase, where everybody is researching and clicking and reviewing information. So that thing, you know, the website has to be relevant and has to be maintained. If not, then it becomes irrelevant. All of a sudden they go to the next competitor who actually has a newer website, or a website that has better information, or up-to-date pricing, up-to-date product information, whatever. Social media, again, you know, there's a lot of people in social media right now, and you need to be part of that conversation. If you're not, then, you know, it's a huge missed opportunity. There's many different types of tactics you can do in here, especially from a lead generating point of view. It's so powerful when it comes to being able to target those people you want with lead generating ads that follow them throughout the process, and through social media, through websites and so forth, and be able to kind of track that information and be able to, you know, push that through to your system for further follow-up and further reach. Again, email marketing is also a very powerful asset, as you guys probably know as well. The final thing here is, when it comes to, regardless of what you do, when it, you know, to kind of get those or capture information. So what we call is create an Excel spreadsheet, first name, last name, the source of where that lead came from, and the information that you're looking for. So that way you have it in front of you. It doesn't have to be a CRM or anything like that. It could be something as simple as just an Excel spreadsheet. But you do that on a constant, regular basis, every day, having that information pushed into it to be organized. And then that's step one. Step two then is to really kind of get into engaging with that customer, because you know yourself that if people are messaging on Facebook, I've seen it many times. I've reached out to companies on Facebook and they don't get back to me within like 3 or 4 days. That's a huge missed opportunity. You have to communicate with people in the platforms that they are using. If you do not, you will lose that opportunity. You will lose that sale. Somebody else. Is it stressful? Absolutely. Is it a pain in the ass? Yeah. Message could come in at 9 o'clock at night, or it could come in at, you know, early hours of the morning. You need to put contingency plans in place to engage with that user, regardless of the fact that they took the time to engage with you, either through an email form, through a Facebook form, or through Facebook messaging. And the fact that you have not engaged with them, you know, says a lot, because all of a sudden they have the control. You don't. Okay, they are the ones that will be shaping your brand. You can't, right? So they're making the decisions. And yes, is there a lot of tire kickers? Absolutely, there are. But again, you need to, in order to be relevant, especially online, especially to become resilient, you need to have that mentality that, you know what, I am engaging with that person. I'm going to present them with the information they're looking for, and I'm going to do it as quickly as I possibly can, because otherwise, if I don't, they're gone on to the next opportunity, the next business, you know, and then all of a sudden you've missed out on that. Really, you know, understanding how to capture those leads. We talked about that in terms of an Excel document, or in you know, if you want to look at a CRM, you can do that as well. A little bit more higher end, but again, at the very baseline, you know, creating an Excel document or Google Doc, you know, online is at least start tracking those, because the thing is, you can remarket to those people in the future. So the thing is, they may not be a present, you know, client right now, but they are definitely a future client. Why? Because they took the time, like I said, took the time to engage with you guys online, with your business. They filled out a form. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not sitting around, filling out forms for a pastime. I'm not doing it. So these people, I always get the question, well, it's not a qualified lead. I say, really? So do you sit there and just fill out forms for shits and giggles? No, I don't. I don't have the time. They're obviously interested in your product. So why aren't you engaging with them? You know, why is it taking you 3 to 4 days to get back to them? The last thing here is really starting to fine tune those leads that come in and put them into some type of sales pipeline or tracking system that allows you to kind of qualify those leads further. We all know that some of these are going to be tire kickers, but again, you know, the most of those qualified leads will have some value, and you need to ensure that you can track those correctly and then put them into, you know, some type of sales execution that you can, you know, reach out to them and be able to see exactly what you're looking for and hopefully close the deal. So again, hopefully this kind of made a little bit more sense in terms of trying to move you from a traditional to the digital space and why that's so important. And I'm going to stop for a second and see if there's any questions. I'm going to fix my screen.
So if anybody has any questions, you're welcome. Like we said before, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand or just indicate something there in the participant area, and we can turn on your mic.
All right, so no questions. I'm just going to kind of walk through a case study with Avalon Ford. So we've worked with Avalon Ford, you know, in the past year. When we came into, I guess, their organization, we found that they're very much a traditional type environment. They focus exclusively on, they valued a lot of walk-in traffic. And, you know, we kind of knew that walk-in traffic is dying at these places, especially the younger demographic. We also knew the fact that the type of customer that is engaging with them would tend to be an older demographic. Hence the reason why the walk-in traffic to them was still important. But they're missing out on a huge demographic of people, especially younger audience, who actually know more about the product than Avalon Ford themselves or the salespeople themselves. As you know, most young people, and I'm not saying young, I'm talking like 25 to 55. Are able to have a lot of research capabilities online. So when they walk in, they know what they want. They're basically just, here's the order. Can you fulfill my order? That's basically what we've seen with Avalon Ford. So one of the things that we found really interesting was the fact that there was very little automation when it comes to collecting the leads, engaging with the people online. So we actually built a lot of automations that made their lives easier. So that way there was a lot of manual process that was happening in terms of someone phone, or someone would click on a Facebook Messenger, and then an information that would have to be manually inputted into a system, and then the system then someone had to check that system in order to see if there was the potential when it was followed up and what times and so forth. So when we came in, we created an automation that kind of eliminated a lot of that kind of manual process, and it worked out extremely well in terms of getting to the leads quicker and converting them quicker as well. The big thing, I guess, we'll take away here, because I'm going to have a lot of time here, is over the period of 10 months that we worked with them, putting that, like the last slide that kind of that I just showed in terms of building out that the strategy, an online strategy, was really seeing success when it came to and really understanding as to their audience that were engaging with Avalon Ford. So there was, like, in 1 month we had over 600 qualified leads, and then when we started dissecting the information, we noticed that 400 of these were actually online. And we started thinking, well, obviously, we know that foot traffic is dying. We know that, people walking in is dying. We needed to create, like David said, in terms of a product line, we had to create an online sales team to address the fact that there were so many people looking for vehicle information and pricing on vehicles, and they didn't have that. So we had to work with Avalon Ford to kind of shape that. And now they have like 12 people that are online that have been trained, that understand how to engage correctly with those people as well. In terms of, I guess the amount of the leads that increased as a result of that, because we've had 400% increase in leads, is absolutely amazing. And that came from the fact that we were able to talk directly to audiences using those different tactics that I talked about in the previous slide as well. During that 10-month process, we've had over almost 9,000 conversations. So 9,000 conversations in terms of talking about your brand, regardless if they bought or not. we had conversation with 9,000 people. So in terms of, in terms of brand positioning, in terms of brand reputation, we started having those conversations and actually, strengthened the brand, at least from a conversation perspective as well. Okay, guys, I think that's my time here. We ran over a little bit here. I don't know if there is any questions. I hope this was helpful. David, do you have any follow-up information that you may want to talk about as well?
No, I mean, an hour is not much, right? When you think about this whole aspect, business resiliency, and then moving to online space in order to make your business resilient, and we're talking about really the core part of your full business. It's everything your business is about. And how resiliency plays a role in that is really how you thrive in the future. And that's the word that I didn't use. You want to thrive. And what John sort of presented online is to help companies thrive. So I would say that let's leave it open for some questions, and then we're certainly available and willing. I think to meet with anybody here that was online today that wants to have a deeper discussion on the topic and how that would work, and then maybe talk specifically about your own brand and your own assets and your own challenges. Ashley, maybe are we able to share our information to the group, or is that
Absolutely
possible?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
if anyone follow up with us, they can afterwards.
yeah, I can email your contact information to everybody that was registered. There was one question there, and I think, John, this one might be more for you, but I'll let you guys decide. So it says, are there any specific automation applications that you recommend for business going online?
Yep. We're taking product orders online. Okay. So I think she's looking for e-commerce, I believe, by the sounds of that. One of the products that we've used, which is absolutely fabulous, especially if it's taking orders online, would be Woocommerce. I could send you that information as well, Samantha. So Woocommerce is a platform that WordPress provides. There's also Shopify. There's other ones as well, but with Woocommerce, it's just widely supported. Most people's websites are actually WordPress anyway, and there's basically this system can do anything that you want. We had a client, Nine Penny. They're on Woocommerce. They have an online ordering system for their beer. They have pickup delivery. They have curbside delivery, and as well as just general, be able to purchase products online, and is absolutely fabulous. Other applications in terms of integration would be, from an automation perspective, would be an application called Zapier, Zapier, I believe. It's a bridge between applications. So just like Nine Penny, they had a accounting system that they wanted to. So when someone purchased a product in their e-com store, they wanted that product to be pushed to QuickBooks. So there is no integration between systems, and you'll experience that a lot with different applications. But when Zapier was involved, it's a bridge between the two systems. Absolutely amazing how it works. So I was able to push all this information from Woocommerce right into the general ledger, and it made things so much easier. So that way, instead of having someone sit down manually and look at the website, download the information, key it into the general ledger, it was automatically done. And that's just one example out of many different types of examples that Zapier can actually provide as well.
Thank you, John. I've looked into Zapier myself for different applications, and it is an amazing piece of software.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's a bridge. So people, you don't understand it. It's a bridge. It's not it doesn't do anything. It just makes the ability to communicate one application with another application and provide that automation that people are looking for.
Yeah, it certainly cuts down on time and also trying to remember which one, if you've entered into one system and not the other, it just doing it once and it just takes care of itself. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you could even flow stuff into a Google document. You could have an email that comes into your inbox and have that information, pick out the bits and pieces of it and dump it into an Excel doc. It's absolutely it's crazy what it can do. Right?
It is. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the question. I don't see any more coming in, and our time is getting close, but I will send out John and David's contact information later. Oh, thank you, Samantha. She said, thank you, John. So I will send that out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Thank you to both our presenters. It was a great presentation, lots of information there. We look forward to having everyone back on the call for future webinars, and hopefully we are all able to weather this storm and be resilient and come through the other side with great ideas and great products. So thank you, everyone. Have a great morning, and we'll talk to you soon.